if the kids are not inspired and they have access to so much more information now than we did in the 70s. I was born in 75, right? So I'm a really good test subject here. Access to information is, I don't even think you could put a scale to it, how much easier it is today to access anything that you want. So the kids are in real time recognizing, I'm probably not going to use this, right? Like I'm probably never, ever going to use this. Back then it was, you'll understand, you're going to need this one day. And it did teach some level of discipline and grit and tenacity and getting through things you don't enjoy. I could argue how damaging that is, but it did give some principled pieces there. Today, kids know, I don't want to be a rocket scientist, so this part of physics doesn't apply to me. Like I have no need for this, right? And now with Common Core and the changing even how things were taught the way we were taught, where now we can't even help the kids, has further conflated the issue. So if the kids know, I'm not going to need this, how are they going to be inspired to go to school? Why would they be inspired? Why would the educators be inspired to teach it? The system's broken. Politics, education, religion, medicine, nothing, and I mean nothing, is what it appears. I can help people. So either get solutions or get off the team. Vastly different economy, right? Pre the Clinton days, where we started to outsource manufacturing and labor jobs. So we needed a robust workforce that was a production economy, right? And in a production economy, you need producers, you don't need thinkers. So that's a dark take on it. I think it happens to be accurate, but we were built, and the system was built, and why since 1971, in spite of us spending more than double what we have spent, and last year was, again, historic numbers, the average 17-year-old can't read 1 point better than they did 50 years ago. So the message is not don't spend on education. It's absolutely spend on education. Continue spending on education in record amounts. Just change the education criteria. We're in a different world. We have access to different tools, right? If we're going to school to prepare us in large part for being responsible, centered, employable adults, would we agree that for the most part is the reason? We should be preparing the kids to be centered, responsible adults that can perform at any level that they want to rise to in their respective field. And we're just not doing that. We're just not doing that at all.
Now, we could talk about what we should be teaching kids until people are blue in the face, but right now we have to look at the reality, and the numbers of kids not even showing up to school is crazy.
Startling.
So tell us about how students...
But let's talk about that for a second. It's startling, but it should be expected. If the kids are not inspired and they have access to so much more information now than we did in the 70s. I was born in 75, right? So I'm a really good test subject here. Access to information is, I don't even think you could put a scale to it, how much easier it is today to access anything that you want. So the kids are in real time recognizing, I'm probably not going to use this, right? Like I'm probably never, ever going to use this. Back then it was, you'll understand, you're going to need this one day. And it did teach some level of discipline and grit and tenacity and getting through things you don't enjoy. I could argue how damaging that is, but it did give some principled pieces there. Today, kids know, I don't want to be a rocket scientist, so this part of physics doesn't apply to me. Like I have no need for this, right? And now with Common Core and the changing even how things were taught the way we were taught, where now we can't even help the kids, has further conflated the issue. So if the kids know, I'm not going to need this, how are they going to be inspired to go to school? Why would they be inspired? Why would the educators be inspired to teach it?
I think of an example, when's the last time someone walked in, when's the last time you walked up to, or someone walked up to you in a parking lot and said, solve for X, or you die, let's just say.
Yeah, look, again, there's critical thinking disciplines that come from algebra, right?
Mhm.
There are important things that I use. I'm a problem solver at my core. I love to solve for X, not necessarily on a piece of paper on an equation, but that's what we do, right? We take big, complicated issues in the most competitive market probably in the world over the last 20 or 30 years, and we solved for those problems. So I'm not here advocating for light the whole thing on fire. What I'm saying is there are a whole mess of skills that from day one, these kids should be learning that will dramatically change the trajectory of their lives. Dramatically.
I think it's important for even you to understand the reframe of when you say you're a problem solver. Every fucking guru, real estate pro, whatever you want to say, will say that they're a problem solver at the surface level. You come at it from a perspective of you're a real problem solver.
Yeah.
I think of it as someone has a headache. Oh, take aspirin. You relieve the symptom, but you're not
solving the problem.
You're not solving the problem. The real problem may be, well, maybe you fucking have been drinking soda all day and you haven't had a glass of water, so you're super dehydrated. There's the difference in problem solving. And I think you would agree that anybody could be a problem solver. Not everybody could be a real problem solver.
Through brute force, I feel like you can probably accomplish anything you want, but that's the opposite of what we talk about. I love to solve problems, so I've leaned into it and I immensely enjoy it. It's not work for me. These big complicated things that we work through, when I look at them, I'm like, ooh, give me the whiteboard and the marker. Other people go, ugh. So could you grind through something? Yeah, but I don't think everyone has to be a problem solver at the level I am. I think that there's a place for all of these different disciplines, and again, there is a place for the traditional learning. It just has to be dramatically augmented and supplemented with these other skill sets. I was reading about, again, by now everybody should know, I call it like I say it. This is not a political statement. It just happened to be that Trump is the one that created these accounts, the $1,000. And I was reading comments and I was reading articles because I like to get a feel of, one, what are the people thinking? Two, what are the sources trying to mold people to think? Not that they necessarily believe it, but especially legacy sources mold people a certain way. And over and over and over, I was hearing like $1,000, what is that going to do? If people understood compounding interest, it goes back to my Starbucks example. If $1,000 is placed in an account for a kid, that you just have to go online and register to be eligible, right?
I spoke to my wife about it the other day.
And as the kid comes of age, you put $10 a week in. By the time they retire, they have over $1 million in that account. $10 a week, $1,000 starter. We don't teach it. People should be registering everywhere for this for their kid and finding a way to put that $10 a week away. And if you can't, put $1 away. And if you can't, put 10 cents away. But find a way to do it, because if they understood compounding interest, which is one of the things we harp about, right? Financial literacy is a pillar of the new age school, or at least it should be. You're incentivized to not get that friggin' Starbucks.
And if you teach...
You can't do shit for $10 anymore.
No.
Can't do anything.
And if you teach this type of stuff in school, you will inspire kids, because now you're giving a pathway to potential success or financial success.
A pathway to financial success, which does not buy happiness, but it sure as hell makes things easier.
And that could be one small step or big step to combat the number of absentees in the classroom. Because every kid, they don't know anything and they think, I want to be a millionaire, obviously. I want to make all this money. But we teach them, well, if you want to make all this money, you have to go out and work for it. And that could be true, but there's other pathways to set yourself up for generational success.
Yeah.
Now, there was a study, and I want to get your reaction to it. They surveyed thousands of students and found something that
Who's
should
this study done by, first off?
Gallup,
Okay.
and the study should disturb every parent. What do you think the number is for students who strongly agree that what they're learning feels important, interesting, or aligned with their natural talents?
Feel strongly. I have to account for some kids just saying it because they think that they should say it and not really believing it, but I'd say it's under 20%.
Fewer than 2 in 10 students strongly agree that what they're learning in class feels important, interesting, challenging, or aligned with their actual talents.
There you go. I think it's probably really 1 in 10.
And only 10% of students strongly agree that they enjoy their classes. 34% say they are always bored.
That's a problem. And we have medicated and misdiagnosed all of this, right? You see the kids that have difficulty focusing. I'm one of them. But put me in a Dungeons and Dragons great campaign, I'll lose a day. Put me in a great run in Call of Duty, I'll lose a day. Watch me focus like you've never seen me focus before. So it's not that I can't. It's that if I'm not interested in it, consciously or subconsciously, I'm choosing not to.
But how would you compare that to what we can do for kids in the classroom? Like Dungeons and Dragons. I know you're a dinosaur, so kids don't play Dungeons and Dragons anymore, but video games is another example. Obviously, most kids like to play video games, but is that going to be implemented in the education system? No. Maybe not. Maybe so. I don't know.
I think there's a creative piece there that certainly we can be teaching kids. You can code your own video game now really easily, like really easily on the right platform. So there's an outlet for that kid. And there's just the fostering of creativity. I talk about Graham Hancock a lot, right? The pyramids, for example. There's the archaeological record that has been shared that tells us when these things were built and who they were built and why they were built and what their purpose was. Then there are other facts that infer a different story. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's true, but they certainly do infer a different story. The size of the stones, the composition of the stones, the great lengths that they had to go to bring the stones there. The fact that even though they said that this was burial chambers, they've never found any kings in these tombs. The fact that the radius and circumference of the earth at a factor of, I think it's 43,200, which is an important historical number, is exactly the dimensions of the base and height of the pyramid, that it is within 0.03 degrees of dead true north, that they didn't have the tools to craft these stones, right? So your imagination starts to go, as mine would in Dungeons and Dragons. Allow for a pathway for a discussion. Don't test me on what year was it built, under which king, and give me a little latitude. Let me be creative. Let me be inspired a little bit. Let me dream about if there's an alternate pathway, and maybe we have a bunch of kids that want to go out and do more research and become archaeologists and prove or debunk any particular story. And these myths are everywhere, right? We talked about case after case after case, Tempe, Easter Island, all these different places and things where there's an opportunity for a different story. Let's foster it. It's no different than creative writing, but allowing them to be creative in that particular discipline. There is a time and a place for memorization. And for some people, I'm envious of the Eric Weinsteins of the world that are so brilliant, that are so well read, that are so incredibly well studied in a particular area and have these mathematical brains in physics that I can only dream of. There's a place for that. There's also a place for the rest of us. But somewhere, somehow, academia and science became a doctrine. And it's not a doctrine. At its core, It should be about asking questions. We should be able to question things. That's how you improve. That's how science improves. That's how medicine improves, right? That's how academia should improve. You question, you test, you prove, you question, you test, you prove. The question went away for like decades now. You don't question. It was on signs all over the place here. I trust science, right? Trust the science. Trust. How many times did we hear trust the science? Okay, but I also have a right to question the science. Just so happens the last go around, most of the people who did the questioning were right. Doesn't mean that all science is wrong, but it means that if you don't give the latitude to question things, you're robbing people of their creativity. We should be fostering this in kids, not dulling it. That makes sense, like how that translates to today's schools?
Yeah. And I think really understanding our children.
God's saying, yep, he heard it.
What was I saying now?
Translates to kids in school.
Understanding what our kids love, enjoy, but also understanding who they are, what they're going through at home. Came across a education podcast. It's like the #1 downloaded podcast for principals in the country. And my old high school teacher was recently on the podcast, Harvard graduate, also a professor at NYU now, and he still teaches high school. And
that must be like me having a conversation with Elon Musk, you talking to this guy. That's got to be, I would like to sit in on one of those chats, if you don't mind. Maybe add me to the group chat.
Mr. W, Adam Wolfsdorf. But he was having a conversation about trying to get the creativity out of his students. And he was doing a creative writing lesson or something like that. And he just challenged everybody to write a poem.
Okay.
And he speaks on one student about the poem, and she wrote a poem called My Favorite Vegetable. And the poem goes, my favorite vegetable isn't a carrot, it's not a tomato, it's not a cucumber, goes on and on and on. And then what she goes is, my favorite vegetable died last month. My favorite vegetable is my father. And you could see as he's telling the story, he's starting to get emotional about it, because we put this student in this classroom, we teach them all this stuff, and we never understand what that student was going through, what they're feeling at home. And he just gave a simple assignment of, let's write a poem on something that makes you happy or something like that. And she got so creative with the whole cucumber, tomato, this, that. And he was just so blind to what this person was really feeling. And I think sometimes we get so lost on the surface of what we're teaching students. They need to learn X, Y, Z, whatever, but we're not giving them the tools for expression.
We have a perception perspective problem. The educators are teaching from a narrow perspective that they own and is their experience. If you get a teacher in a classroom of, what's the average class size today? 30, 35 kids?
For a public school, probably 30 kids.
Okay. Maybe you're landing with 10% of them, right? If you have the ability to perceive what the others are thinking and feeling, it should augment your lesson plan, but the system is set up where it can't, right? It's very rigid. This is the criteria, this is the curriculum, this is the testing, and that's what you carry out. That's the system you went through. As an educator, that's what you know. That's your perspective. But if there was a perception of the diverse group of kids that they were in front of, there's got to be latitude if you want to inspire these kids, period. We have to change the curriculum. We have to get our educators inspired again to have the freedom. Most educators in private that I've spoken to hate the way the system is now. They feel like it's a very box check. There's very little latitude. They're afraid to speak out and cause a problem. They're not inspired. We got to inspire these kids. Got to inspire the educators.
Inspire, but we also need to be careful because on multiple instances, you've always said we could fall into the same trap of garbage in, garbage out with education and AI. What does that actually mean, specifically in the context of in a world of where AI exists?
It means giving a diverse curriculum, offering tracks where there's certain core, but beyond the core, kids can take many, many, many more electives until they find something that lights their fire, that they love, that they're interested in. And then they double down in that elective track, and that is the inspiration. You still have the discipline, you still have the memorization, but you also have a counterbalance of things where you could be free and you can really enjoy it. You can look forward to classes, 2, 3, 4 classes a day where you're like, all right, I'm going to do this because I want to get to that. Inspire them. Give them different tracks to pursue. Cover a wide array. When I was a kid, I thought art class was completely useless. It's only when I got older, I realized how incredibly important artists are. From movie directors to painters and musicians and everyone in between, they are connected far more to source than I think many of them realize. And if you really study art and study music, you start to see these patterns of decades in advance, sometimes centuries in advance, glimpses of what the future holds. For me, it didn't light my fire as a kid, but for a lot of kids, I'm sure it would have.
What was something that you had to do in school? Like you said, you didn't see the point in art. What class or subject would you take that you gravitated towards, if any?
Earth science.
Really?
I love earth science.
Why?
I didn't know then, but I didn't know until I was in my 30s that I was an outdoors kid. Growing up, in one of the boroughs, you're not exactly heading out into the outback and roughing it. You're not in touch with nature. You don't understand hunting and fishing and populations and how the whole ecosystems work, how incredibly connected everything is. But for some reason, that sparked for me. I loved earth science.
What about you, Pete? What was your subject? There had to be something you gravitated towards.
It was the 1 year where I had it was jewelry class, honestly.
Jewelry?
Yeah, we would make jewelry.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
But that's kind of cool.
Yep.
If
That's what I liked. We used to we'd bring in old jewelry, we'd melt it down. We had these little saws and little vice grips, a buffer and everything like that, and we would make jewelry. Cool.
That's suspect. Just saying. A little suspect. But and look, there you go. If there was a track of electives that could take Pete down the path of creating, great. If there was a track that would have taken me down, leaning far more into environment and the earth and animal husbandry and all of the things I didn't learn about until, again, my 30s, I would have loved it. It wasn't until I went to a specialized management and marketing track in college that I was on fire, that I loved everything.
Yeah.
Management and marketing just clicked for me. And it went from failing out of 3 colleges to a 4.0. I loved it.
Yeah, I always sparked to public speaking. Don't know why. A lot of people hated public speaking, but it was just something.
Now imagine you had a track for the 12 years that you're going through the formative education process into your high school, where you were learning more and more and more about public speaking, television, broadcast, radio, speech writing. Probably would be in a very different place right now.
You know what's interesting though is we teach this in the academy. I loved public speaking. I don't know why. Maybe it was just I always wanted to be the star or the person on camera, whatever it may be. But what public speaking didn't teach were the things that we just read in book club with body language. You know, if you're public speaking, if you're showing your hands, not showing your hands, if your feet are tilted one way or whatever. And those are very unique skills that we're not preparing kids for either.
We're hiding them. We again, the darker take on this is we have hidden NLP from kids. We have hidden the power of the right and the body language and how to communicate, how to negotiate, how to read somebody. Those were the old boys network you would used to hear about. Those were the secrets. And they're available now. They're still not anywhere close to mainstream, but more and more people, Chase Hughes, Chris Voss, they're writing about this stuff and they're making it more mainstream and they're sharing that knowledge, but we should be teaching it.
They're teaching the knowledge, but they're monetizing the knowledge.
Yeah, and I have no problem with somebody monetizing their knowledge. We're not monetizing this because it's not my main source, right? Like I monetize real estate. That's what I do for a living. If you're a mindset person and you monetize it, good for you. The education piece for me, because there is a financial barrier everywhere, can never be charged for with the work that we do.
So for generations, the whole point of school was to fill your head with information and
worker bees, to create worker bees.
Yeah, no more than the next person, get the credential, get the job. The entire premise that just collapsed. If AI can access and synthesize virtually all human knowledge in seconds, what does school actually exist to do
Today?
in its current iteration?
Today?
Yeah.
The hard truth?
Yeah.
It's a babysitting service. That's the hard truth. For most kids. Let me caveat it. Most kids, because there is still that 10%. You say 20, I say 10 of kids that are inspired. But for the rest of them, it's a place that they go and things that they do because they have to. And it allows the parents to do what? Both go to work.
God is really listening to you speak right
He
now.
is.
So there's a crisis happening in schools and universities right now that everyone's calling an AI cheating problem, but I think they're misdiagnosing it. What does it actually tell us when a student uses AI to write essays, study for a test, etc.?
So you're asking why the schools have that perspective on it?
Yeah.
Because if it's, their argument would be, well, it's not original thought and it's not creative, though they have done everything possible to limit being creative. They want the kids to go through the grind of doing the work. I would argue when you use the tools correctly, you're still in that grind, but you're able to access what is the monotony for me, sourcing the data, backstopping it, making sure that your facts are right. You could just do it at literally lightning speed in real time. But when you're not then bogged down with going and having to find the source yourself and transcribe it into your paper and you can do it instantaneously, for me, it allows my brain to go to the next thing. Like, okay, can we, straw man this? Can we steel man this? Where are we? Works, doesn't work? Give me the source. Do I think it's a good source? Great, let's incorporate it next. As opposed to having the thought, going and finding the resources physically, in some cases, or through the internet and others, having to read through 1,000 pages to get to your point. Like it saps that next level of question, creativity, free flow. So I get that they don't want to tell the kids, go write an essay on this and don't have it written by AI because you're skirting the work. I get that. Allow them to be creative. Just adapt it. Like if you need the resources in a traditional paper, I need 10. Get me 10 sources. And in fact, I want you to write 2 papers. This assignment's going to be straw man it. Tell me all the reasons why this isn't good. Next one will be steel man it. Give me all the reasons why it is good. Get the kids thinking, right? Let them see both sides. That's the beauty. The more you read, the more you learn, the more you consume, the more your mind opens and you go, well, shit, I didn't think about that.
You feel like a lot of the fears coming from kids using AI to supplement reading?
Just to short circuit the work.
Yeah. And that's where the danger could lie. And you're saying combat it.
But you can't regulate your way out of this. And that's what they're trying to do. I laugh about the data centers and all the things everyone's all riled up about now. Ships left the port. The data centers are coming. We need them. We need them to be competitive on a national level, on a state level, on a local level. Ship is left. You know, we talked last time, I think, about the government and DARPA and the technology that they have. Do you really think we have all the tools available to us right now? Of course not. And to try and regulate your way out of this, it's not going to work. It's like telling the kid they can't smoke or they can't drink at a certain age. You find ways to do it just because you were told you can't, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to regulate your way out of this. This is the new norm. And there is an incredible opportunity to learn. Take two positions of the same argument, and coming out of it, maybe you feel a little bit differently than you did going in. You should never agree with 100% of anybody's opinion. You should never agree with 70% of it. Like a healthy sample is probably 55%, 60%, but the rest of it you should be open to. Like, I didn't contemplate that.
Should always contemplate my ideas.
But we don't. We get into, forget about you. But we don't, right? We fall into these ideological groups, and then our algorithms feed us messaging in that ideological group. And then before you know it, what started here, we're now agreeing with stuff way, 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 way over here. There's a scientific process that you go through that the algorithms know very well, and the groups that fund them know very well. Chase Hughes does a beautiful job describing this. I would urge everyone to look it up, where by getting someone to agree to one thing that feels good, the next 2 or 3 decisions are so much easier because you've taken the first step. And they fall into these silos, and that's how you end up with a group over here and a group over here that are the loudest. And most of us are in the middle going, I really don't believe any of that or any of that. But I'm ostracized if I say this or I say that. So I kind of move a little, and then I move a little, and then I move a little. Dangerous time.
Interesting. I texted you a name, I'm not going to say it, the other day and said, what do you think? And you said, another talking head, and agree probably more than less. I was texting with his former morning show producer, and she was like, do some digging on his Twitter and see if your guy agrees with what he's saying politically and all that stuff. And a flag went off in my head. I was like, why does he only have to agree? We can't have meaningful conversations from a place of being neutral?
In many legacy sources, no, you cannot.
I'm not going to use the word scary, but it's just proof that the messaging has to be altered.
What have I been telling everybody here for years? If they're going to produce content, be authentic. Saw this coming, and the backlash that comes of it is, if you're authentic, people will relate, because after they have such a level of discomfort, they start to go, wait a minute, I kind of like what this guy's saying over here. Be authentic. Don't care what people say.
People are craving authenticity.
Yes.
Now, you said schools, we teach kids tools in their current iteration, but not identity. I want to make that concrete. Why does it matter more right now than it ever has before on the identity piece?
Because of the algorithms, because of marketing, because of the speed of the messaging of the world that we're in today. More than ever, you need to know, does this align with my core values? I would venture to say that most people wouldn't even know what core values are. They wouldn't even know what they are. They're your core values. They wouldn't know what their purpose is. Like, what really gets them up out of bed every day? They would have no idea how to affirm and declare them and bring them into reality. And if you don't do that stuff, you are far more susceptible to this alternate messaging, psyop, whatever you want to call it, marketing that is everywhere. because you're kind of floating around and you don't know.
I know you've spoke on this before in the past, but could you name all or one or two of your core values and how you ensure that you live by them every day?
Authenticity. Super, super, super important for me.
So you really do hate me.
Oh, yeah. I make no apologies for it. They've changed. Accountability was a huge one for a long time, but they've changed over the years. And the further down the path you go, and the more you refine it, and the more you read, and the more you consume, that's healthy. Like, my why, when I landed on like leadership and being a mentor, I was like, no, I want to be left alone. I don't want to have to do any of that stuff. I want to go kill and hunt in my deals, and that's it. That's why I was so misaligned for so long.
Do you think you belonged living in like the 1700s where you could just go out and feast on anything? No.
I'm not sure it was quite so easy as you can go out and feast on anything. It was a whole bunch of problems in the 1700s, but I believe that in this go around, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.
So we talked about this in another episode, but I want to bring it back for book purposes because it might be the real crack in the wall. What does it tell you when Boston, the first major American city, officially commits to making every student AI literate before they graduate? And when they say AI literate, at what level are they talking?
Well, that's the danger. Like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what the curriculum is. I don't know how it's being taught. So, do I think it's a step in the right direction? Absolutely. At least they're talking about it. But knowing the way the system is set up, I would question the devil in the details, because I've seen lots of programs over the years that sound amazing in title and on paper, as they're intended to do. And it's not what you think it is. So great that they're talking about it. I don't know enough about the details to comment.
Last one, and this may sound repetitive, but it goes back to the example I gave before about the real problem, headache, Tylenol, whatever. If you had to give a diagnosis the way a doctor gives a diagnosis before prescribing treatment, what is the single most accurate way to describe what is wrong with the education system right now? What is the real problem with the real solution?
The real problem is the money, which equals influence, that centers around this massive federal and massive state entities in the Board of Ed, are filled with people that are understandably more concerned with staying in line and just doing what we did yesterday to keep their jobs than they are going, this doesn't work. The curriculum at its core is broken, and it's a deep, dark question about why is the curriculum broken? Who are the people that are refusing to, and for 50 years have not dramatically adapted the curriculum to be more reflective of what helps kids today? That's the problem.
But we never bring a problem without a solution.
And the solution gets complicated, but my tiered system here: term limits across the board for everyone, rolling bureaucratic appointments across the board for everyone. That is their de facto term limit. Campaign finance reform. Those three things at the top, once they're fixed, allow everything else to fall into place. Those are the three big ones. And they have to happen in conjunction. One or the other doesn't solve it. All three.